He said, "Lo, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt, and the form of the fourth is like the Son of God." So these men took a stand. We read in Ephesians, I read to you, to be able to stand against the wiles of the devil and tell us what we fight against. Now that was Paul writing in the New Testament. Several thousand years later, he said, not being afraid to take a stand, unashamed to take a stand. I taught in the Juvenile Detention Center on Daniel chapter 1 on daring to be different. I taught them about how daring to be different and how not to be afraid to be different or take a stand for what's right. And that was about Daniel. But Daniel's morals brushed off onto these 3 Hebrew boys that he was friends with, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or their real names. Anybody know their real names?
Just listened to this last night.
You know?
Anybody know their real names?
I can't remember.
Easy. Think about it.
Azariah is Abednego.
Shad something. It's
Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah.
I knew.
Hananiah was Shadrach, Mishael was Meshach, so always remember Mishael, Meshach, that's easy. And Azariah was Abednego. And they changed their names. Daniel's name was changed to Belteshazzar. But these men, something rubbed off on them. They may have had their name changed. They may have had a name change because they were captives. They were not where they wanted to be. They were captives to a city. They weren't there by their free choice. But they made up their mind that even though everybody else was bowing to this statue, and even though everybody else was doing what was commanded of them, they made up their mind that they were not going to bow, but they were going to stand for what was right. If there's anything you guys can do as teenagers and young people, it's to not be afraid to take a stand. To dare to be different, what I told the kids. To not be afraid. I dared them. I said, I dare you guys. And I was using a different part of Daniel, but I said, I dare you guys to try something different. What got you in the Juvenile Detention Center, if you go back out and do it again, some of you got in on the dare. And you know what? As young people, you'll feel, you know what that is? That's called peer what?
Peer pressure.
Peer pressure. Peer pressure. Peer pressure to smoke. Peer pressure to drink. Peer pressure to do drugs. Peer pressure, maybe it's not that extreme, but peer pressure to lie. Peer pressure to hang out with one crowd and to make fun of another person. Peer pressure to do something that you would normally not do. Why? To fit in? To be cool? Can you imagine how many thousands of people? I looked it up one time. I haven't even studied this for a long time. I preached a message on this back when Scotty was a pastor. We were talking about the other day. I preached a message I preached a message exactly on the fires burning, but they're still standing. I talked about the trials of life and how trials will come our way, but we have to, when the fire's turned up, when the furnace is hotter, if you've got God, if you've got Jesus beside you, the fire may get hotter, but you can still stand in the fire. Can you imagine? These guys were thrown in the fire 7 times hotter, and that king was astounded and astonished, and he said, wait a minute, these guys are still standing. And that's what God is looking at when the fire's turned up. Because guess what? The 70s, they say the 70s was a rough time. There was a lot of marijuana. But you know what? There was a rebellion in the 70s, but that was the start of it. We are in the after effects of the 70s. The people that were in the 70s, that were hippies and smoked pot and loved peace and chicken grease and no war and, man, calm down, dude, I'm a stoner. Those people had kids. And now their kids are just even quackier than they were. And now it's not pot anymore, it's not marijuana, but it's heroin and it's crack cocaine and the drugs have gotten stronger. And what are you trying to say, Brother Ryan? Well, we're all Christian kids, yeah. But you're living in a day and age where you go back when our parents was kids, and most of the people before them had God-fearing parents. They had parents that were scared to sin and be that wicked. And even if they didn't go to church, their grandparents were Christians. And the grandparents before that. But now you've got a generation who knows not God. It talks about it in the Bible in Joshua. There rose up a generation that knew not God. And that was called the wicked generation. He cursed the generation because they grew up a generation. And you know what? You go to juvenile detention center, you go to different places now, and we speak to people, especially at the juvie, and Brother Brent goes to the jail, and they don't know nothing about God. They don't know nothing about church. And it's not their fault because they've grown up in this wicked generation. They're a product of the generation. And so here's what I'm getting to. How much harder is it going to be for people that know the truth? Even Kiara hasn't been in church that long, but she's learning and she's hearing Brother Brent preach, and she's been in Sunday school class. But you guys and myself, we grew up in this thing. We grew up in church. We know what we're supposed to do. How much harder is it going to be for us to stand in all of this? Can you imagine? I was going to tell you, I did a study one time on all the people that came. I read to you all the people. These were the royalty. Okay, these were the what did he say? It's right here. He said these were the princes and the judges and the governors and the captains and the treasurers and the counselors and the sheriffs and the rulers of the provinces. These were all the rulers. Okay, can you imagine all the provinces? The people that followed had to follow them. All of those leaders came. Now you know how it is when you have a celebrity show up somewhere, or superstars, or if you have a president show up. What immediately follows those people?
Tons of more people.
Tons of more people, exactly. So can you imagine how many thousands of people? I forget the estimate. I don't want to exaggerate or tell a lie, but it was thousands of thousands of people that had flocked to this statue, and they were to bow. And can you imagine how that would have looked as you looked across and you see all these people on knee bowing to this statue, and there's three boys. I don't know where Daniel was. I believe with all my heart Daniel wouldn't have bowed. Maybe Daniel called in sick.
Daniel had went back to Israel.
Exactly. I heard that some said that Daniel had taken a trip. Daniel had gone back to represent Babylon, or he had gone back to several other places. Daniel was not in the picture. But all I know is these three boys are standing here. There's nothing in the Bible says where Daniel is, but there's scholars and people that believe. But if you're going to see three boys standing, thousands upon thousands of people, and three boys are standing. And the king says, I'm going to throw you in the fire furnace. You know, he didn't want to throw them in. He picked them out. If you read the book of Daniel, prior to this, he had picked these boys out. And Daniel had proven by not eating the king's meat that these boys were healthier, and the king wanted these boys. And he's like, boys, what are you doing? You know, he gave him another chance. He said, you know that when the music plays again, that you got to bow. You can't make me a liar. And then he got mad. He said, now you're making me look bad. And he said, turn it up 7 times hotter. I'll show you and I'll show everybody else. And when that king saw that, because those boys stood and took a stand, all of those people that day got to see the God of Israel, the God of Jacob and Isaac. They got to see the real true God. The real deal was made manifest because these three boys took a stand. These three boys weren't afraid to stand up for what was right. Taylor?
How come if Daniel got to leave and everybody else couldn't leave?
Daniel was a right-hand man to the king.
Kind of like Joseph in Egypt.
He went into Arioch, whom the king had ordained to destroy the wise men of Babylon, blah, blah, blah. That was in chapter 2, verse 24. But Daniel, it said Daniel answered in the presence of the king. Daniel was a very prominent...
Kind of like Joseph. No, he didn't have as much power, but he was a slave.
Joseph, but Daniel was because of, if you read Daniel chapter 1, you'll find out where Daniel was chosen. Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, before their names were changed, were chosen because of their intellect, because of their study, because of their birth as well. They were born of royalty in the nation of Israel. But these boys weren't afraid to stand. These boys weren't afraid to take a stand for what's right. And if I can get you guys to get anything into your head, if it'll get past your head and into your heart, guess what? It's got to go. Sometimes we read, we study, and we hear, preacher preaches, but if it don't go through here, not through the ears, can't go through the ears and back out. It's got to go through your brain, wherever it travels. If you're right-handed, a lot of times you think with your left brain, right? So, you think with your left side if you're right-handed, they say. So it goes through your brain, some wavelengths going on in there. I don't know what happens. And then it can just spit out the information and you can spew it out of your mouth or let it go out the ear. Or if it gets past the brain and it gets down into your heart. It's got to get down in here. And them boys, somewhere, something that their mom and daddy told them, and Daniel taught them, because I believe they were the same age, it got past the head, and it got them to the heart. And they made up their mind that no matter what comes my way, no matter what I have to do, if my name changes, if my country changes, I mean, they had to, can you imagine China? Think about this, guys. Can you imagine China coming over and capturing our nation and changing your name to Hong Shui? And I'm Ching Long, Li Hong Yang Yang. I'm not Hong Chai. And Luke is no more Luke. He is Smash Moo.
He's Long Shaw.
Long Shaw. And this is Cho. And that's Chai.
And Owen.
And she is
Kai.
She can still stay Kiara. She can stay Kiara. Can you imagine that? Think about it. They come over, they captive, and then they say, you ain't worshiping God anymore. You're worshiping the supreme leader. I can't even think of his name because he just changed presidency over there.
Kim Jong.
No, that's Kim Jong-il was in North Korea. That's how it is in North Korea too, though. Okay, North Koreans come over, take us captive. Kim Jong-un. It was Kim Jong-il, now it's Kim Jong-un. He's a dictator. They worship him. It's so funny if you watch it on YouTube. They'll go out and they'll cry. And they fake cry to his picture. They'll do this. Thousands of people. They'll just cry at his huge picture. Just about like that. And if you ain't crying, they ain't showing the pictures, but who knows what happens. Because he's a dictator.
They got machine gun guys all around.
Evil
man.
man.
To do it.
His daddy was. And they're hoping he might be better. But can you imagine that? But these boys said, that's what happened to them. The same thing. Changed their name. Changed their identity. They can't change their nationality, but they had to change who they were. They wanted to change everything. The devil wanted to defile them. That's going to fall, Trent. It's going to fall.
Well, it's not got anything in it.
Oh. It started bleeding. The devil wanted to defile them. He tried every means to defile them. He tried through the king's meat to defile them through their mouth. He tried the king's tactics to defile them through their minds. He tried the king's tactic to defile them through their manners, their mouths, their minds, and their manners. He tried everything he could do to defile those boys, Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But they made up their mind that they were not going to bow, even without Daniel, even without their best buddy. They made up their mind they weren't going to bow. And you've got to make up your mind. It's got to go from here, and all the information and all the knowledge is nothing if you don't have it right here. You know how many men have known this Bible from front to back? They can take you from Genesis chapter 1 all the way to the back of this book, to Revelation chapter 22, I believe it is.
21.
Is it 21 or 22?
21.
Revelation chapter 22.
22.
Revelation chapter, from Genesis 1 to Revelation chapter 22. Dakes. How many ever seen my Bible, my Dakes Bible? You know, Brent's got a Dakes Bible. That annotated Bible, it's not anointed, it's actually called annotated. But that Dakes Bible has writing in it from every verse almost. He wrote something about every verse. He knew the Bible. I think he had it memorized. Most of the Bible memorized from front to back. And do you know that he messed up and he sinned? And he committed adultery against his wife and he lost out. And I think he died a sinner. Maybe he asked God to forgive him, but I know he backslid.
I thought he's still alive. T.J. Dakes?
No.
It's Jakes.
Jakes is gone. That old man died. Messed up and on the bottom, and he knew the Bible. What happened? Knowledge is great, but you've got to get it so strong in your heart. What's the Bible say? Thy word? Thy word, if I hid in my heart that I might not sin against God. Where's that at? Psalms chapter
1 something.
No, it's not 1.
73.
Psalm 61.
I can't remember myself, but I remember hearing it when I was a kid.
I did too. It's one of our memory verses.
Thy word hath I hid in my heart,